This one is from Dose of Truth. Shout out to them.
What time is it? 8:15. I started when? Sorry, it's been.
You can tell he getting seasoned in age.
6:30.
I started when?
Stop then. I'm supposed to stop pretty soon. I
blocked my TV.
I'm going to go for 5 more minutes, and then I'll wrap this up. I want to talk about intersectionality and white privilege a bit.
Uh-oh.
So I first said, well, we analyzed Marxism, we analyzed postmodernism. I suggested that postmodernism was a way for the Marxists to keep going under a new guise. I suggested that Marxism was fundamentally based on hatred rather than sympathy and empathy. I suggested that the corpses were the evidence for that. I told you why I think postmodernism is fundamentally wrong. But now I want to talk to you a little bit about white privilege. So, the first thing that and I haven't got this quite figured out yet, I can't quite figure out why the postmodernists have made the canonical distinctions they've made. Race, ethnicity, sexual proclivity, sexual gender identity, let's say. Those are 4 dimensions along which people vary. But there's a very large number of dimensions along which people vary, right? In fact, given that there's an infinite number of ways of interpreting the world, you could immediately point out that there's an infinite number of dimensions along which people vary. And so then the postmodern question is, why would you privilege some of those dimensions over the other?
2 things, full disclosure. I do think white privilege is real. I do. But I've been learning some things that have been giving me a better understanding of the ways of not only the world, but the country. And my mind is shifting a bit, just a bit. I'm not going to tell you where it is right now, but it is shifting a bit. And I have a better understanding and appreciation for people such as Jordan Peterson and others that I've been checking out lately, and Thomas Sowell specifically. But Jordan Peterson, the next thing I wanted to say also is how lucky are these students to just be in this gentleman's presence as you know, from student to instructor, and not knowing how far this gentleman is going to go. Like, this was like 3 or 4 years ago. And lastly, if you like this style of content, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell if you want to be first to be notified. And for all of you that appreciate the music the most, do me a favor, go follow LFR Family Plus. I will be putting a lot of our music reactions over there, so you not be left out, okay?
And I would say, well, because it sustains your bloody Marxist interpretation, that's why, but you're not going to say that because it marginalizes, right? You've marginalized that so you can ignore it. So that's one of the fun things about postmodernism. You can I have a very vulgar image in my mind, but
my man's so daggone silly, man. I swear to goodness.
I won't share that with you, but you can infer it. Here's some ways people differ: intelligence, temperament, geography, historical time. You live now and not 100 years ago. Attractiveness, that's a big one. That's a big one. Would you imagine you could? We won't go there either. Youth. It's advantageous to be young. You've got potential. It's advantageous to be old. You've got wealth. Health, that's a good one. Sex. Women have advantages. Men have advantages. Maybe one has more than the other. It's not self-evident.
Women have more.
Women live about 8
Definitely.
years longer. They're multi-orgasmic. Athleticism, wealth, family structure, friendship, education. Well, then there's the classic, postmodern ones: race, ethnicity, etc. Why not those other dimensions of variation? There's no evidence that they're less important. In fact, there's quite a bit of evidence that they're more important. So, like, why not consider them? Then you get intersectionality. This is one of the things that's really comical, I think, because the postmodernists, identity politics types, actually realized this. They thought, well, okay, race and gender. Fair enough. Well, what if you're a black woman? Well, that's a problem because, well, now you've got two dimensions of differentiation. What the hell are we going to do about that? And what if you're gay and black and female?
Well, being double minorities and being triple minorities and all those other things, people do consider them. They do consider them. I understand what he's doing right now. He's giving a whole bunch of other attributes and descriptions to consider when talking about privilege, who has privilege and who does not, right? And he's trying to figure out why do all of these things top whether you're white or not, and why is that one the one that everybody choose to hang their hats on when they're talking about privilege? And I will explain my position at the end of this video, but my position changes from video to video, and it's not because I'm flip-flopping. It's because I'm an objective listener and learner. And I don't mind learning something new. If he can teach me something right now that can get me off of the train of there being white privilege, hey, I'm jumping off the train. I've arrived at my stop, pretty much. And my stop is not necessarily my stop, but it's my next, my next trip, my next direction. You know what I mean? My next form of instruction. So I'm here for it. This gentleman clearly knows a lot more than me, so I'm gonna shut up and just listen.
Differentiation. What the hell are we going to do about that? And what if you're gay and black and female? Well, then what if you're not very bright and gay and black and female? And then what if you're ugly and not very bright and gay and black?
Well, that makes it worse for him.
Like, you can keep playing that game. You can keep playing that game an infinite number of ways, because there's an infinite number of ways to categorize things, as the postmodernists already pointed out. And so the intersectionality theorists came along to plug the hole, but they don't know where they're going. They don't understand that the logical conclusion of intersectionality is individuality. Because there's so many different ways of categorizing people's advantages and disadvantages that if you take that all the way out to the end, you say, well, the individual is the ultimate minority. And that's exactly right, and that's exactly what the West discovered. And, the intersectionalists will get there if they don't kill everyone first.
Intersectionalist, I'm unfamiliar with that term. If y'all can help me out with that, that would be awesome.
So, on to white privilege. So it's really interesting to find out where these ideas come from, because usually the scholarship is so awful, you just cannot possibly believe it. It's just absolutely, it wouldn't, at the University of Toronto in the psychology department, the original paper on white privilege wouldn't have received a passing grade for the hypothesis part of an undergraduate honors thesis. We're not even close. There's no methodology at all. The person who wrote it, it was called White Privilege and Male Privilege. A personal account of coming to see correspondences through work in women's studies. Well, first of all, personal account, it's like, sorry, no. So she listed a bunch of ways that she thought, she says, these are personal examples of her unearned privilege, or unearned privilege that she saw as she experienced in the 1970s and 1980s. So this, by the way, this idea is the opinion of one person who wrote one paper that has absolutely no empirical backing whatsoever, which is a set of hypotheses which had never been subject to any statistical analysis. Like, if I ask you a bunch of questions, it's not obvious how many questions I'm asking you, because I could say, how tall are you? Or I could say, if you're laying on the ground, how extended would you be? It's like, that 2 questions? It's like, no, it's 1 question. It's just asked 2 ways. And the way you figure out if you ask someone a bunch of questions, how many questions you're asking them, is by doing something called a factor analysis, which is kind of an elementary form now of social science investigation. If you make a questionnaire, you have to subject it to a factor analysis, because you've got to find out how many questions you're asking. Because you might think it's 60, but it's probably not. It's probably 5. That's the big 5, by the way. Anyways, who cares about that? There's no such thing as methodology anyways. That's all part of the oppressive white male European patriarchy. So we can just not bother with that, and we can pen a few notes about how we think the world is constructed, and then we can screw up the entire political system 2 decades later. Okay, so here's her white privilege list, some of it. There's like 50 things. I can, if I wish, arrange to be in the company of people of my race most of the time. If I should need to move, I can be pretty sure of renting or purchasing housing in an area which I can afford and in which I would want to live. That's actually a wealth thing, by the way. I can be pretty sure that my neighbors in such a location will be neutral or pleasant to me. I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed. I can turn on my television or open to the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. When I'm told about our national heritage or about civilization, I am shown that people of my color made it what it is. Well, there's 50 of those, I think, something like that. Okay. Is that white privilege, or is that like majority privilege? Is the same true? You go to China, you're Chinese. It's the same true if you're Chinese?
And that's what it is here. I mean, it's majority privilege, but at the same time, it's not the new majority privilege, because the new majority privilege are people who came from different countries. And they are now the new majority. But we're talking about the majority that was here first, the things that they did to set up the systems here. And honestly, let's just keep it a buck right now, because everything that people have an issue with is not going to be backed by facts. It's going to be full of hypotheses and opinions. But at the end of the day, y'all need to consider this. Everybody don't play fair. Everybody don't play by the rules. A lot of people are still tied to the way things were in olden days. That's why a lot of people don't mind having statues of actual slave owners in every single city and state that you go in around the United States. A lot of people don't mind that, but then there are people who do. There are people who are closer to that end of the negative side. And when they see those things, they're like, whoa, what the hell? Now, and it's a cause for concern. But when they speak their concern, you're like, oh, foo that. We're not listening to that. This person is a national treasure and a hero. And you're like, yeah, that national treasure and that hero had 300 slaves. But there's a wealthy neighborhood in every single state that's named after this person. So it's those sort of things that bring about these type of conversations. Like I was just now talking to a group of people inside of my Discord the other night, and one gentleman showed me some of the guns that he has inside, and he was saying he put them together, and he was out there, he was taken to go shooting at a really young age, which is amazing when you're able to do those sort of things, take your grandchildren or children out to go shooting, hunting, those sort of things, and teach them a skill. I think that's absolutely remarkable. But because of the way that the people are in this country, what's been placed in our minds over century after century, through whatever medium we were using at the time, it causes certain races to be frowned upon if they were to do the same exact thing, like showing the weapons and the guns and stuff like that. And if you say that it's not the truth, then I think you'll honestly be disingenuous when you say that, because you guys always say mainstream media plays a huge role in why people believe certain untruths that they believe or that we believe. Well, we need to consider also that we succumb to mainstream media all as well. Every single name brand item in our house, from the tissue to the toothpaste to the soaps to the clothing that we wear on our backs, are because of mainstream media. If not, we will save a ton of money and buy the off-brand things that nobody knows about, and not even concern ourselves with the can saying Lysol. As long as it disinfects, we will purchase it and we will use it, not considering whether or not it's considered the top brand out there. But because of mainstream media, we buy what we believe, what mainstream media told us is the best brand to purchase. So to act as if the world does not affect how we think and how we move, it most certainly does. So when it comes to people getting certain jobs, people getting into certain schools, universities, and whatnot, it's not about what's law or what people think. Like if it's law, the law being affirmative action, what people think being there's some white privilege going on there. It's about the people who are actually in those positions that can make things happen for you. And sometimes it's all about the comfortability of that person and what they will allow to happen. So sometimes we need to look a little past what is a law or what can be backed up with facts and step into some common sense sometimes, if that makes any sense. All right, let's go.
Is the same true? You go to China, you're Chinese. Is the same true if you're Chinese? Is it majority privilege? And if it's majority privilege, isn't that just part of living within your culture? So let's say you live in your culture, you're privileged as a member of that culture. Well,
Yeah,
obviously,
that's true.
that's what the culture is
That's
for.
true.
That's what
Absolutely.
it's for.
Absolutely.
Why would you bother building the damn thing if it didn't accrue benefits to you? Now, you might say, well, one of the consequences is that it accrues fewer benefits to those who aren't in the culture. Yeah, but you can't immediately associate that with race.
That is true. That is 100% true. I'm glad he said that, because if a white person go to a HBCU, historically black college or university, they're not going to be treated the way the rest of the black people are treated there. But that's also the same if a black person goes to a PWI, predominantly white institution, they're not going to be treated the same as the majority white people that are there. So they're going into somebody else's backyard or somebody else's culture and expected to be treated fairly. All right. Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay. Wow. That was a way to put it right there. That was a good way to put it, brother.
Those who aren't in the culture. Yeah, but you can't immediately associate that with race. You can't just do that, say it's white privilege. There's many things it could be. It certainly could be wealth, and the intersectional people have already figured out that there's many things it could be.
It can also be race. So point that out too, please. It can also be race.
So, what the hell? Seriously. Well, what's going on? Well, we let these pseudo-disciplines into the university because we're stupid and guilty. Seriously. And they have no methodological requirements and plenty of power and plenty of time to produce nonsensical research and produce resentful activists, and now we're bearing the fruits of that. It's not pretty. So white privilege. Well, the other thing you might notice is that...
but, see, okay, and I have nothing but respect for Mr. Peterson. But at the end of the day, you cannot just wash something away just because you've picked up 49 other reasons that it could be. It could be white privilege. Just the same as it could be any other thing. It could be a beauty preference. It could be all those things. But at the end of the day, like you just now said, if it's cultural and it's your culture, you will set things up so that the people in your culture will win. But then when you have a world of other people who are a part of that culture, not even on purpose, but this is what has to happen in order for us to do well in society. Because right now, my culture cannot set the rules for the rest of the country when it comes to having to have a college degree in order to get a job, or having to go to certain universities to receive that college degree in order to get the job. Because last I checked, if you were to hire somebody and you saw Morgan State on the list, but you also saw Princeton on the list, who are you going to hire? You're going to hire somebody from who graduated from Princeton. Who's in Princeton? Who's in Yale? I'm just saying, those sort of things do matter. And then when you try to figure out how they were able to get into those universities, it wasn't based off of their intellect altogether. It was not. And we're not only talking about the children who decide to study there. We're also talking about the people who decide to work there and teach there, instruct there, even to clean up there. Those things need to be taken into account at some point. At some point. We can't just wash it away like it doesn't exist.
That to attribute to the individuals of a community the attributes of that community on the basis of their racial identity is called racism. That's what racism is. There's no other way of defining it. It's attributing to the individual the characteristics of the group as if the group was homogeneous. Now, the intersectional people have already decided that's not a fair game because there's so many differences between people. But the postmodernists don't care about logical coherence because they regard logical coherence, here it comes again, as a creation of the white European male patriarchal structure that's designed to oppress the oppressed. And that's technically the case. So logical incoherence, it doesn't matter. And you could say, well, if you act out your logically incoherent ideas in the world, you're going to run face first into a brick wall. And the postmodern answer to that is, there's actually no real world. It's all interpretation. So there's no having that discussion, but the postmodernists don't care because they don't believe that discussion between people of different power groups is possible anyways.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of people out there that no matter what you say, and kudos to Dr. Peterson for doing everything possibly he can possibly do to remove the whole victimization way of thinking. That's important because not all people can think objectively. Like some of you are not objective at all. Some of you might have heard me say something throughout the course of this video, got pissed off and left, probably even unsubscribed because you don't want to hear my side. You're like, who are you? This is Dr. Peterson we're talking about. Whatever he says is true. He studied it all. That's what he does. He studies and he teaches. That means what? He doesn't study and teach from my vantage point. He's never been in my vantage point. He's never been where I've been. And with as successful as he's been in the last couple of years, he will never be where I've been. And there's no book, there's no movie that can show him where I've been. So he will never fully understand that part. He will never, and a lot of you won't either. But what you can do though, is the same way that I'm trying to take these steps and be patient enough to learn something that I was always against or for, that he's against or for. I don't even know where the hell I was going with that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this reaction. I definitely enjoyed the bit of information that I received from Mr. Peterson. I'm not completely bought in on there not being white privilege, but I'm not a victim either. Not at all. Not at all. I do believe that in any culture, the same way he said it, people will build it up so that their culture will win. And when you look at who started this country and who built up this country from the beginning, you talk about all your forefathers. They were building it up so that they can win. Please keep that in mind, okay? Thank y'all so much for commenting below, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon as well. Hit the subscribe button. Join us on Twitch if you want to be live with us. And again, if you want to hear, if you are here and you like to see more music and comedy, we're going to start to put a lot of the music on the LFR Family Plus channel. So go ahead over there and follow that. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Love you.